What is Parkython? It is a hackathon for Parkinson's, helping people with Parkinson's to customize and build their own solutions by connecting with creatives, designers, and makers, as well as startups, researchers, and others building the next generation of technologies for Parkinson's. Welcome to Parkython.
Today's guests are the founding team for Charco Neurotech. And Charco is developing a novel vibrating wearable that provides haptic cueing, vibrational cueing, which includes discrete medication alerts, in addition to focused vibrotactile stimulation, which does have some potential to become a new, non-invasive and non-pharmacological intervention for Parkinson's.
Our story actually starts from 2014 when we met this gentleman who said, I'm very happy right now, but people think I'm angry and I look angry because Parkinson's disease took away my smile. Since then, our aim was to bring those smiles back for people with Parkinson's. Currently, there are 145,000 people just in UK, 10 million people around the world who are suffering from Parkinson's. Every 30 minutes, someone is newly diagnosed. And currently, there is no cure. People with Parkinson's really struggle from three main issues. Firstly, movement symptoms. Stiffness, slowness, and tremor really limits their daily activities. Going for a walk, making a cup of tea, or even doing a shirt button becomes really challenging for them. Secondly, like any other medications, taking them on time is really difficult. However, not taking medication on time for people with Parkinson's may mean that they lose balance and can really damage their, cause a big injuries for them. Lastly, tracking symptoms is really difficult for Parkinson's, especially because it's not a measurable condition such as blood pressure or heart rate. So updating clinicians in 6 to 12 months can be really challenging, which means unsatisfactory clinical time for both clinicians and patients. So Charco have developed a hardware and an application together to solve these problems, to improve the movement, give medication alert, and track the symptoms. So just to start with, I'll just show you the device a little bit. So if you can just focus on the video for a second for me, please. So this is the docking where it acts as a charger as well as keeping the device in. It's really easy for people with Parkinson's to lift the device. The drawer rotates where the adhesive sits. The device have a hook and it attached to the loop of the adhesive, and you take out the flaps to attach it onto your sternum to operate. So how does this device helps with their movement? If I can just hand over to Floyd to go into more details, please.
Sure. So vibration or vibrotactile stimulation was first recorded as a useful therapy in 1880 by Professor Charco, which we all know well. And since then, there have been lots of efforts to understand the underlying mechanisms and potential applications of the strategy. Another really interesting addition to what we can currently do with Parkinson's is the use of cueing, which again has been really useful in freezing of gait, but all sorts of movement tasks. And lots of people with Parkinson's have told us their own tricks on how they utilize cueing. So what we wanted to do is create a really user-friendly device that could take advantage of both of those. So focused vibrotactile stimulation, there are a few theories on how it works, but the main one is peripheral stimulation, which then leads to neuromodulation of the sensory input, which ultimately helps with the motor output. Cueing does something similar where you basically overcome some of the sensory and cognitive difficulties that some people with Parkinson's have. There are also lots of studies into actually showing efficacy of these sorts of devices, and like functional findings and physiological changes like reduced beta wave activity and alternate pathways being used, and ultimately improving quality of life for people with Parkinson's with this quite non-invasive technology.
So I think the best way is to actually show you the footage of our testing.
Yeah, well, I've watched Celia walking there, and it is 10 times better than the way she was walking yesterday afternoon. But watching you walk there, you're back to the way you were walking last year doing that.
Well, it was a presence. I knew it was there. It was giving me the rhythm of walking.
I have a tendency to press very hard with the pen, and this is very light. That's as smooth as it's going to get. Isn't it weird?
So, yeah, so with Parkinson's, you know you need to do better, so you try harder, but it doesn't make any difference. But now, with this going, you try harder and it does make a difference.
I just felt as if I moved a lot freer. I was moving as if I didn't have Parkinson's.
So the results of the testings, we firstly actually carried out the testings that people with Parkinson's said that they want to do better. So the above 16% was with the task that has been chosen by people with Parkinson's. We've been seeing time to complete task was showing 16% improvement. We also carried out unified Parkinson's disease rating score, which have been showing 9 points difference, and tapping task and timed up and go task all have shown significant difference. And just to put this into perspective of people with Parkinson's, they have said if anything helps, even if it was 1%, it is a miracle for people with Parkinson's. So when we actually brought this device to people, they've been wearing it for like a whole day. So they actually asked us, can we have a medication reminder? And as much as people with Parkinson's opinion is the most important thing for us, we incorporated this medication reminder into the device, which is set through an application. And the application also has a symptom tracking functionality where we have a quantifiable measurement. So it is collecting the questionnaire, so how they're feeling, as well as the movement tasks. So to bring the Q1 device for people with Parkinson's, my name is Lucy Zhang, Innovation Design Engineer, and here we've got Floyd Perez and Alex, who are a medic, and Alex have both combining skills of a designer and also being a scientist. Our team is a combination of lots of different disciplines, guided by amazing advisors who are all in business or clinics, and also legal and finance, who can basically help us build our company. So the potential focus stimulation doesn't actually end with Parkinson's. We've actually tested the device and the theory together with people with stammer, and we've seen a significant reduction in their stammering. So this lady here, who couldn't finish one sentence without stammering, lost her stammering completely while she was testing our device. And other clinical studies also have been showing a benefit of focus stimulation in stroke, multiple sclerosis, and spinal cord injury. So right now, we've had our journey from 2019 to start our company. The research started in 2014, but the company has been set up in 2019. Where we are at is we're just about to go into design for manufacturing to actually launch the device in UK and EU in early 2021, really quickly spreading out all over the world. So firstly, we want to go into B2C and B2C direction. And the reason for this is because that would be the fastest route for us to get this device to people with Parkinson's who are waiting for the device. But we will be really looking into getting to work together with NHS Trust in UK. For international, we'll be working together with insurance companies so that as many people with Parkinson's can get it into their hands. So we have been extremely lucky that we had institutions like Cambridge University, Imperial College, and also Royal College of Art helping us with our journey. But our biggest achievement was this lady here who had a 32% improvement when she was carrying out the movement. And she was saying that I really want to try this device in my dance class. And she did bring the device to her dance class, and we saw the biggest smile from her. And that is our aim, to bring as many smiles back for people with Parkinson's as possible. And any questions, please fire you.
So how do you sell it to someone like Rui in Portugal and Kevin in the States?
So right now we are actually on our website, we have prepared this waiting list where they can sign up their interest. And this waiting list is actually really important for us because it gives us an idea of what the demand is. We are a startup, as you can see, we can't make hundreds of millions of devices to start with. So that's why this waiting list is really good identification for us to actually meet the demand. So that's where we're going to start. Our website will be basically a web shop where you can come and purchase the device and the delivery be with you. In terms of the NHS and insurance company that we are keen to work together with is basically the device that can be, prescribed by the clinicians. That's kind of like our long-term goal. So right now, I think one of the questions that I can briefly see from the chat is the price. Obviously, everyone is interested in the price. Yep. We are currently looking into having a retail price of $295, but obviously, if there is any changes, we will be disclosing it. But that's the price that we are currently aiming for.
Yeah. Well, what about the data? How are you managing the data? How is it going to be collected? When is it stored? How is it going to be shared? Well, how are you going to take care of that?
Actually, we just had a meeting about the data. So what we have is right now we have an MVP of the application where you can start testing the application. And we just started collecting the data with some of the people with Parkinson's, ourselves, and also the age about 50 to 70 age bracket. So right now we're collecting this data and we will be training the algorithm to take the next steps to actually get the scores done. And then when we start modeling these things, we will be really quickly spreading out to the wider audience. So ultimately, like long-term goal is that when you visit clinicians, you go in and then they will already have a snapshot of how you've been doing throughout those 6 to 12 months. So you can have more effective conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, that's my dream, because I think as we all know, you may know Sara Rigari. She has her famous website. She's a fellow former World Parkinson Congress ambassador. And she shows all the dots of how many hours we spend with our neurologist in a year. If we're lucky, we may get 1 hour total. Mm-hmm. And all the hours we're on doing self-care. How important it is to go to the doctor with some sort of snapshot that they can quickly understand, what are our daily fluctuations and things.
Sorry, I'm going to reinforce the question regarding the data. The security, do you send it to a central place? Is it, how secure is it? Who has access? How are you guys protecting it? And yeah, I mean, I ask you this not because of trust, because people with Parkinson's naturally are a little afraid of sharing information. So this is a huge deal for them to understand how this works.
Of course, right. If I can just tell you about where we are at, is we are at MVP stage where we are not even connected to their application. So we are giving them a package where they can install it, and only when they download it and then send it to us, then we will be able to access it. And even then, so we're not actually relating this information to individuals. So we don't have their names, we don't have their data, so we don't relate them together. So this is where we're at currently. Moving forward, we will ensure that this is secured, because as you said, it is a medical data. We are also under regulations of medical devices, so we will make sure that the data is protected.
So it's on your own personal device first before it becomes very good. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's more a reality of where we are as a company at the moment, and yep. All those considerations. So we are actually working on all of the back backs data storage and all of the regulatory and security measures we'd have to do. And another consideration is the difference in regulations and data protection services we need depending on which region we enter. So we are quite mindful and we are working on that. But yeah, at the moment, currently it is essentially stored in our minds. We envision that we'd have reports that would be easy to, firstly for the person who has Parkinson's to see and relate that to reality themselves, and then have reports that they could share at least on their device with their clinician when they see them. But then absolutely, as Lucy said, our vision is a little bit larger.
Sure, yeah, I was going to say on the other end, there's geeks like us who love to collect data and share data and throw it into, you know, the collective melting pot and see what comes out. So I'm glad to hear that you're thinking about that too, like how even if it's opt-in basis, but being able to share our data, not just with our doctors, but with others and with scientists and researchers like yourselves. And then connect it with others, you know, technologies, like maybe you're not monitoring our sleep perhaps, but if we notice by using your technology, our sleep starts improving, there might be some correlation there to investigate. Yeah, so all those issues, as you know, that's Parkinson's, the tremor or the movement issues is like the tip of the iceberg, and there's so many other fun things to look at. So
Yeah.
I think open APIs are important, or at least being able to export an Excel.
When I saw this talk and I saw your technology, I was absolutely buzzing because it looks amazing. It genuinely looks incredible. But I think the thing for me is that this will live or die by actually how open you are with it. And I can appreciate you're a startup and there's an important thing for you to make sure that there's a sort of business model to sustain you, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think the reality is for this type of technology, it needs to be open and encouraging, not just actually having conversations with people, but actually allowing people like myself and others, like sounds like Kevin as well, to get access to these APIs, to work with these, to start to experiment and build stuff. And so I wonder then, so what is your approach to that, both in terms of the APIs so that we can work with the data sets that you ultimately collect, but I guess the other thing is even those algorithms themselves, the machine learning, the models that you're building, you know, can we get to a point where that would be open as well, and where this would be something that actually would be something that is shared with the community and worked on in that sense?
So I think one thing that I want to be clear, there are two things that I really want to be clear. So firstly, as you can see, like all of our team members are mainly researchers, and our vision is to actually contribute to the science. And we're really all about collaborating with the science so that we can help, you know, Parkinson's in a bigger kind of vision rather than keeping this to ourselves. Just to kind of tell you about the background, we kind of become entrepreneurs because we found this thing rather than we wanted to be entrepreneurs. So we're so much about the vision itself, and we do want to improve the quality of life of Parkinson's and the care of the Parkinson's. So we're really open about working together with I know our team is super excited to meet you because we've been talking about this. And I love like what you actually mentioned there. The other thing I want to clarify with you is there is actually, we are at quite early stage with actually modeling the algorithms and everything. We are currently working on it. About sharing, I think Louis mentioned something really important. We will be really open to share this data that we're collecting with the researchers. However, we have to make sure that the people with Parkinson's are comfortable with it.
I have another active project at the moment, which is around colorectal cancer, and we're building basically a large consent for contact platform. But essentially what we're looking at is more starting from the point of view of the individuals, the participants who are engaging in these types of research studies. What are the controls that we need to give them in order to do things like these sort of consent for reuse of data and secondary analysis on data sets? And it's really starting from the position of those individuals, the subjects of that data set. And that's the mindset that a lot of my research has always taken, is it's more this idea, not necessarily of how do I support the researchers and then the healthcare professionals, but actually how do we empower and support the individuals themselves, particularly those living with these chronic conditions. So as I say, a lot of my work has been very much looking at how you design those consent models and allow for that kind of flow, give that kind of granularity that people ultimately need in order to feel the trust, as Rui mentions here, you know, in terms of the trust to be able to share that type of data as well. So yeah, so I'm really, really excited about this and happy to chat more in the future as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely spot on, and we've encountered it in our initial testing and interactions as well with people with Parkinson's. So we've just taken on legal support. So like fantastic new member of our team who's supporting us from that side. Lucy said we have support from Cambridge Judge and quite a few other university and institutions who are supporting us in making sure that we do this right. But maybe it's a bias, but the people with Parkinson's who've come to us are all so keen to get involved in research, to share their data as much as it can help them. I feel like the community generally really wants to just help move the disease forward. So definitely something we have to incorporate, and consent is definitely something we want to make as crystal clear as possible. And I think that would encourage more people. So we think a potential driving factor for people using this app and sharing data is actually knowing it's going to contribute and make a difference.
But I was going to just say that I remember the TED Talk with Robin Morgan, who is the editor of Miss Magazine back in the 70s. And she talks about, she writes a series of poems, and she goes, slice me, dice me, spread me on a slide, and everyone in the Parkinson's community is ready to contribute. But I saw Dr. Bloom in the Netherlands talk about the implications for family, especially when you start talking about genetic data. So I think it's really important to have that, and I'm sure Kyle is way more up to speed on this. And so making sure that it's a family conversation and it's a family contribution, because you are contributing information about the rest of the members of your family. So that's very good. I like the way you're thinking about it.
So what Kyle says that he's doing the project regarding the APIs, I was going to say that is something that is important, because I see so many apps, and there's so many apps that people don't use or don't get away, because they're not linked, not connected, and somehow people just forget over time, and the business model goes away or something like that. So it's all about the gathering of collecting efforts, and I believe that's the big point that we're trying to achieve here is have something that is common and can give a big drive to the process. I mean,
anyway, I've got kind of a micro question or comment and then a macro. From what I can gather, what excites me is the fact that in between my doctor visits, as you pointed out, the ability to modify my own treatment. For example, if I see a trend happening in terms of on-off, and essentially I personally don't experience on-off. I'm kind of off all the time, even with the meds. But it would be interesting for me to self-monitor and see if maybe I took, instead of taking my meds 2 at a time, 4 hours apart, what if I took 1 at a time, 2 hours apart? And kind of, as it were, play with my own dosages. And then second, I see in terms of the rate of progression, one of the things that scares my wife the most is that unknown. I seem to be progressing relatively slowly. And this is where I kind of get into that macro big picture. What if we started cross-referencing these data sets with genetics? I mean, is there, I had myself sequenced about 2 to 3 years ago for 44 of the known mutations. I don't have any of those, but my dad had Parkinson's. So it makes sense there's a genetic link. He progressed very rapidly. I'm progressing pretty slowly. Why? What's the difference? And I think if we start linking up and cross-referencing, and we have a gigantic data set, and you guys start data mining for this and for that, it's incredibly exciting. And so I want to write a check, and I want the next available.
I actually thank you so much for those 2 points, because it's exactly what we're trying to do. So the firstly about the on and off, it's actually right now what we're looking into is not just medication. Of course, medication on and off is important, but what happens if we actually bring in information of what kind of nutrition that they're going through. With this lockdown, their activities is reducing, and that is making the symptoms worsen. So if the device, collectively with the hardware and the software, if it's collecting all this data to show them when they eat X, Y, Z food, they're a bit better. If they suddenly had this particular food, they're feeling a bit worse. We don't know yet, but if we're collecting enough data, we'll be able to kind of start drawing this up. And then the second point that you mentioned about this bigger picture, it's all about how long we can study. The interesting thing when we were actually doing this, it may be the data that is, as Kyle mentioned, it may be if we pay for it, we may be able to access, but we couldn't actually identify like what is the actual progression of Parkinson's depending on the environment that they're living, the diet that they had, the exercise they had. So what we're trying to do, obviously we're taking baby steps, but we want to take it into the steps where we can give, we can have all the data sets that we can actually show them, because as you mentioned, the uncertainty is the scary part, unknown bit is the scary part. So as one of our GP advisor mentioned, if someone have, even vague idea of what the Parkinson's progression is like, when this has been found in certain age, or like what kind of diet, or what kind of, the body, body type, like all of that, then what is the kind of known can we bring in? Then that self, like just reducing that uncertainty will really help individuals and their loved ones. So that's what we want to take in a big picture. We are taking baby steps, but these baby steps can really be helpful if lots of people collaborate together. And as Kyle mentioned, I think we're really aligned with like lots of people have to collaborate rather than doing their own thing separately.
I guess another sort of follow-on big picture from that was, if we have enough data, can we predict what the outcomes of certain interventions could be? So one of the examples was, if you do take on a new exercise program, can that actually potentially make a difference to the progression of your Parkinson's? And what would that potentially look like for you as an individual? So we have lots of questions we're quite keen to dig into.
I'm going to be a little bit of a skeptic, having been in some different environments with this. I think that's a very worthy, and it's nothing to ever not look for or stop looking for, but it feels a little bit of great white whale to me, in that there are so many variables in the phenotyping, and I think anything that you can do to get to a key way to give data to Kevin and to Rui and to AC and anyone living with, so they can improve it over time, maybe that data will be there. But boy, right now we have two giant phenotypes. We have rigid akinetic, and we have, the tremor dominant. And it's like, there's probably like 42 phenotypes. There's a rigid akinetic that has too much blood. It's like, and so I think that's great. But I've seen this pitch. I've been in startups where we tried to make the apps where we're testing that. And I say, just give something functional to the people living with the disease, and the data itself will happen, because they'll provide that. They'll build the data set for you, but not if they don't use it. That does kind of get to my next question. Are you doing most of this in the app, or do you have sensors also on the wearable itself?
So I guess I can answer that question. So right now our device doesn't have sensors. The only thing there is a communication between the Bluetooth and the application, and it is mainly like setting medication alerts and also like changing the stimulations. However, with the device, the way that it is applied to the body, we will have a lot of opportunity to bring the sensors in.
I have a question regarding I don't know if it was already mentioned, but regarding the position of the device. Is this related to the thymus stimulation? Is there something regarding the place that the front of the chest? What was the reason you put it there? Can you tell more about that? That's this.
Yeah.
Sure. So vibrotactile stimulation has actually been studied in most parts of the body that you can think of. So I've seen studies in the hands, dominant arm, torso, abdomen, soleus muscle, insoles, like C-spine areas, lumbar areas. So we've seen these devices being used all over the place, and for different findings, whether that's gait related or more like hand task orientated intervention. So we've seen lots of different places being used. Our personal findings with our device were that the sternum was giving us the best results. And we also found that in some people with tremor dominance, using peripheral stimulation on the affected limb actually made the tremor worse. So considering that the symptom relief was unilateral and universal on the sternum in all of our participants, and with the added benefit that it's quite a convenient place if it is button operated to be able to activate without anyone necessarily knowing, so in quite a discreet manner. That's where we came to in terms of the sternum. But we are actually, it's developed in a way that it can be applied all over the body. So we're really keen in future studies to try different positions and try possibly multiple devices at the same time and different patterns, etc. I think it is a really interesting, exciting thing to investigate further. But we are very confident that the sternum is the best. So we'll be advising that always going forward.
You capture such great data there. You get center of mass stuff. It's a really ideal place. And again, great place for sensors. You can't do anything without moving here, where I could do all kinds of stuff over here and nobody knows what's happening here. So it's great. I agree. You have to you're using a medical fixative and putting it on there. Is that right? How long does that last?
So the medical adhesive, the way it works is we have kind of two parts to it. So you have the patch that goes on your skin directly, and then you have the kind of bit that goes on the device itself. So you can leave the patch on your skin and take the device on and off, which means that you don't have to be peeling the medical device on and off every time you want to take off the device. So the patch itself will last roughly 14 days. And that's shower-proof, sweat-proof, and everything. So it's we've tested it going for runs and all sorts of stuff. So it stays on there really nicely. And yeah, so 14 days, medically kind of all okayed, no irritation to the skin. Yeah, I guess that should answer the question.
Yeah, I think that's a really smart way to look at it. And then
battery,
go ahead, Kevin.
The battery.
Yeah, the battery, we're aiming for a 7-hour battery life, but that's for continuous vibration. So we can envisage a situation where people would be using this only for particular activities. Obviously, if you're sat on the sofa, you may want to use it. We've had reports of users actually saying it gives them a kind of sense of calm. So people have just kind of left it on. But we can also very easily see people just using it for very specific tasks. So it could quite easily last you a full day.
Mark, you already talked about you trying to gather the information about the market, but you can talk a little bit about that again and the competitors and how are you going to how are addressing that in a strategic way.
Yes, of course. So it's really interesting when we get this question about who is your competitors and how are you going to, win the market? Because for us, if there is a device out there that is helping with people with Parkinson's, it's not necessarily competitors. We are actually aiming to one vision of helping people with Parkinson's. It's more about how can we actually collaborate. So one of the interesting things that we actually study is that how can our device combine with other devices and actually maximize the benefit for individuals. So that's something that we are looking into rather than thinking about other people as a competitors. So that's why Kyle's invention was really interesting for us. So instead of actually avoiding, I'd love to talk with all the people who are actually working in Parkinson's and see how can we mutually benefit. Because if someone developed the parts of the technology and we've developed this, and then by working together, what are other things that we can do to quickly benefit people who are suffering from Parkinson's. So that's one kind of view of how we are looking into other people who are working into Parkinson's. The other thing about, though, what's special about Charco, and so that kind of goes back to why we're not scared of competitors. And the one thing is that actually really special thing about the Charco as a whole team is that we're really interested in not just about developing this device and getting this device out there, but we're really interested about overall, how can we really help people with Parkinson's and the management in a bigger picture.
I was just going to say, yeah, I think it's great to hear that, because I believe, if you create something of value, the money will follow eventually, but it's still at this early stage. The difference in the startup world. There's the concept of a blue ocean or a red ocean, and the blue ocean is where we're at now. I think where there's so much room for innovation and discovery and
So we have been extremely lucky that we had institutions like Cambridge University, Imperial College, and also Royal College of Art helping us with our journey. But our biggest achievement was this lady here who had a 32% improvement when she was carrying out the movement. And she was saying that I really want to try this device in my dance class. And she did bring the device to her dance class, and we saw the biggest smile from her. And that is our aim, to bring as many smiles back for people with Parkinson's as possible. And any questions, please fire you.
We need your help. If you are a startup or know of one who can help collaborate to find solutions for people with Parkinson's, we would love to hear from you. We're all in it together. Thank you.